I want to talk about so many other things, but inadvertently found yourself building a marketing automation product in one of the hardest industries to build and sell stuff in, and then exited that
Yes.
business.
Yeah, we ended up getting bought for a Big Mac and a high five, and then I took a little corporate therapy time on somebody else's payroll. But coming out of that, we had done this cool thing there around content and appeal personalization, right? So like a school would have all these departments and all this content all over campus and was super distributed. Nobody knew anything about any of it. And we figured out how to like centralize it all and then create recommendations for people, right? And so we would make it really much easier for an alumni association to actually look like they cared about the humans that they were writing to and had capacity. And what we realized when we got out of that, we said, well, geez, you know what? That engine was actually pretty cool, right? Our mistake was building 1,000 features on top of it and trying to do anything in higher ed is we just jokingly and lovingly went down painful memory lane. So we got to the other side and we just kind of toyed with it. We left it alone for a little while and then started to explore what the APIs at like a MailChimp or a HubSpot or a Marketo, like what do they let you do? And we kind of looked at each other after exploring for, a few weeks and we said, oh my God, we could actually do this through other stuff that's already in people's hands. That would be so much cooler. And the problem is so pervasive across B2B, loads of content, big distro problem. Like it makes a lot of sense. So really, kind of as I think a lot of second time founders will find themselves having significantly more success than in their first run at the game. The first run taught me a ton and I got to learn something that informed deeply, I think, a way better business that's way more interesting and fun to run. So anyway, that's how we landed.
I don't do a ton of investing, but I'll say that like the things that for me, if I was doing a lot of investing, the things that would check off all boxes for me is like any founder with a sales background is instantly like, cool. Like you've been on the front lines. You actually know how to do this. Like when you build a feature, you're like, yeah, but are they going to like care? And you're like, the users are going to love it. And you're like, yeah, maybe, but like, can I demo it? And they'll be like, whoa. And if not, why are we building it? So like that
Uh-huh.
checks off some boxes for me. I think that being the end user and sort of seeing that problem before is also super valuable. And you sort of understand that piece of it and you maybe built a little bit of it before. And so where did air traffic control maybe start and sort of where was the product? And then tell me about what is it now?
Yeah, actually, again, painful lessons learned. This time around, look, like no truly passionate founder is ever happy with where their product's at. It's always, oh, shit, man, there's like 3 more features. I swear to God, it's a total unlock. And it's always feeling like that. But early on, we were so far away from something that someone could walk into and use on their own. But the actual algorithm, the recommendation engine, we actually had that working pretty early, not in a way that would work at massive scale and over again. But we could ingest a whole bunch of engagement data from a customer's major marketing automation platform. We could create an interest graph for the people that we were able to ingest all that data from. So you open up an email about giraffes and we're like, yo, giraffes are maybe interesting. Then there's a link in there about a hippopotamus and you click the hippopotamus link and we're like, oh, giraffes and hippopotamuses. And in fact, more hippos than giraffes because that link click is way more interesting than an open. So like on and on and on. And we started to really kind of clean it up and figure it out. And once we knew that the APIs were there for us to get that data, and once we knew that we could make those recommendations, at least by pushing some buttons in the back end and get all the customer content and like create these connections, we actually went out and sold like services deals,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were super tight. We said, look, we want you to do a personalization centric campaign. If that's not something that you want to do, then we're not for you, right? We're not a catch-all agency. What we are is just we're a tech-enabled, very specific kind of packaged service. And here's the crux of it. We want to try to really take advantage of the content that you've produced and try to deploy it against a particular problem in your funnel, early stage, mid funnel, late funnel, you tell us. but that takes that stuff and starts to do something about it. And we'd wrap our arms around it. What was so awesome is we were building the front end of the product in response to our own experience, trying to get
Mm-hmm.
it to work and solve these business problems for customers, which was the sickest aspect of building this business. And I'll never do it any other way
Yeah.
ever again. And I wouldn't back anybody, to your point about investing, I wouldn't back anybody who didn't,
Yeah.
right? If you haven't wrapped your arms around the customer's problem and been like swimming in their tears, you should definitely get out of the kitchen because you don't deserve to be there and you're missing out on all the good shit, right?
That,
Which is,
dude,
I
something
just,
that like I don't know. I talk to lots of founders. I read a lot of Reddit and X of people trying to do stuff. And everyone's like, how do I find this problem? And like, how do I? And I'm just like, I don't think like the product market fit and the problem to solve problem should just be, you should be so intimately familiar with exactly what it is. And I think not dissimilar from what you're describing, like everything, and that'll change as I think we have more mature products, but everything that we build on the happily side is just us being like, no, we've been the end user, we know the problem, we know exactly how this should work, and that is what we are going to build. And I think to your point, the speed with which you build things of value is just so much faster when you are, not only are you that end user, but you actually understand how somebody using that solution would want it to work.